It was a normal afternoon for Tulin. He was lounging around doing absolutely nothing, like the burden on society he is. His iPad was blasting some horrible YouTube video, probably some Cocomelon or Slackgate type thing. Typical for a snot-nosed bratty kid like him. However, something was disturbing him. There was yelling coming from the other room. Teppa and Saki were arguing again. However, Tulin was too stupid to care. He just turned the volume up on his iPad to drown out the shouts of his parent with the slop that is children's YouTube. As he rotted his 2 brain cells away, the argument in the other room had reached its climax. The yelling had gotten so loud that it strained the throats of both of the speakers. But someone snapped. One of the combatants was stunned, and for good. There was a silencing scream, quickly followed by a slam of a door. After a quick moment of silence, all that was left was some quiet sobbing, and the sound from Tulin's iPad. Later that day, Teppa went to go break the news to his son. "Tulin?" Tulin grunted, too busy with his iPad to pay attention to his distraught father. "Tulin, can you put that away for a moment? I need to talk to you." Tulin looked up at Teppa with indifference. The only thing going through his tiny pea-sized brain was what he was going to watch next. Teppa could only look at his son with sadness as he broke the news. "Tulin, your mother and we're getting a divorce." Teppa was only met with a grunt as his son went back to his iPad. He was frustrated by the response he received from his son. Tulin should be upset, unless he didn't know what a divorce was, which he probably didn't. Tulin is so stupid to know what most things mean. "That means me and Mommy don't love each other anymore. It means she's going to live somewhere else, without us, and you might not see her all the time. Things are going to be different." "Shut up! Go away!" Tulin yelled. He was only concerned with slobbering all over his iPad like the toddler he is. Teppa started to exit the room. Just as he was about to leave, he muttered under his breath, "Saki was right. We should have aborted you." Weeks passed. Those weeks turned into months. Saki never came back, and Teppa was left with the kind of difficult task of raising Tulin. Tulin was an ungrateful child. He only cared for the overstimulation his iPad provided and would throw a tantrum if he was without it for even a second. Teppa had to call in a friend for help. Link was always so down to earth and was always willing to lend a hand, even after saving Hyrule twice. No task was too big for Link. At first, his help was limited to every now and then, but quickly became a daily thing. Link was over there so often, it was practically like he was living there. In fact, he actually moved in with the two to better help Teppa out. One night before bed, the two had a chat. "Teppa?" "Yes, Link?" "I think I have a solution to our problem." "Oh? And what would that be?" "Well, let's just say we won't be seeing him around anymore." "I like the sound of that." The day was June 18th, 2023. Link, Teppa, and Tulin all piled into the car and were heading out to the ocean. They told Tulin he was going to go to a summer camp cruise. Tulin, in his infinite stupidity, only cared that he was allowed to bring his iPad along. He picked his snotty nose as he sat in the back seat blasting whatever on his iPad. It wasn't long before they had arrived at the port. The two dragged Tulin onto the Ocean Gate ship as they hid their faces in embarrassment from Tulin's behavior. His poor behavior was a huge contrast from the billionaires that were patiently awaiting the upcoming trip. At last, they arrived at their final destination, or rather, above their final destination. The deck of the ship was bustling with activity as the crew prepared the submarine. The captain, 3 of the billionaires, and Tulin were all lined up to get into the submarine. Teppa and Link stood watching as they filed into the cramped underwater craft. Teppa looked worried. Clearly, he was doubting if this was the right option. Link put his hands on Teppa's shoulders to reassure him this was the right direction. Teppa leaned into Link, and Link held him tight as the Titan went underwater. The crew aboard the Titan relaxed as the craft started to descend, or at least as much as they could with the snot-nosed brat. Tulin, being the world's biggest idiot, had zero self-awareness. He didn't care that he was with some of the richest and most powerful men in the world. He just wanted to watch his Cocomelon. So, when one of the other passengers asked him to turn down his iPad, Tulin refused. Why should he be inconvenienced? But the passengers had enough. They banded up together, and with the help of the captain, they managed to pry the iPad away from his gross child hands. The most surprising part was not the fact that 4 grown men managed to pry a tablet away from a child, but rather that such high-class individuals would be willing to touch a snotty, saliva-covered device that had been who knows where. The victory was short-lived, as the horrible noise of the iPad was soon replaced with the wails of a bratty child, and Tulin wasn't going to stop until he got his iPad back. Not wanting to put up with that, the demands were given into, and the little terrorist was once again satiated. About 3,500 meters below the surface, tragedy struck. The battery on the iPad had reached 0%. This was bad. However, Tulin didn't care. He didn't scream. To the annoyance of everyone, he merely complained. He begged for a charger, a phone, something to keep him occupied. He went from person to person until he saw it. The Logitech game controller. If Tulin couldn't play games on a phone, he was going to play games on a console. But what this stupid idiot didn't know is that it wasn't hooked up to a console. No, the controller was hooked up to the submersible. In a flash of light, Tulin was using all the strength in his tiny body to get control of the controls. This time, the strength of the four dots was no match for the power of his stupidity. Tulin started to wail away at the buttons on the controller. At the same time, on the surface, the crew was going into a frenzy. They had just lost communication with the submersible. They were lost, stranded beneath the sea. It was not looking good for those aboard the Titan. However, Link and Teba could not have been happier. This was it. They sat back and relaxed as the hunt for the missing vessel began. 5 days later, on the 22nd, everyone aboard the Titan was officially declared dead. They died instantly via implosion during the descent. The cause was still unknown, but rumors say that there are 2 people who know why it happened. After that day, Link and Teba lived happily ever after.